In the coming moments, you'll expose a mystery so ominous, so fiercely concealed by contemporary mental health experts that it revolutionizes your entire perspective on women's longing. This goes beyond mere superficial examination. It's the hidden truth that Freud dreaded releasing to the public, a reality tucked away in his confidential correspondence, edited out by his disciples, and exploited by those unable to cope with its consequences. As this sequence unfolds, you'll grasp why passion isn't the illusion you've been fed, why males have been deliberately deceived, and how this insight grants you an influence so perilous that many will deny its existence. We'll begin with a tale Freud hoped you'd never discover. Back in 1895, an affluent Viennese noblewoman named Anna von Lieben sought his help for a dilemma. She suffered from uncontrollable outbursts, immobilized by mysterious impulses, and stuck in a union she loathed. Freud, a budding neurologist at the time, delved into her unconscious mind. His discoveries demolished his ethical boundaries. Anna didn't merely yearn. She hungered in manners that culture labeled as barbaric. She imagined scenarios of control, degradation, and even brutality. More alarmingly, her urges weren't anomalies. They were the norm, not the outlier. In a personal note, Freud penned, "The refined lady is merely a mask. Underneath resides a turmoil of ancient drives, a yearning that remains unspoken." This wasn't guesswork. It stemmed from direct patient insights. And it delves even deeper. Examine the instance of Dora, among Freud's most notorious cases. Sharp-witted 18-year-old female. Dora was referred to Freud by her parent following her allegation of molestation by a close acquaintance. However, Freud's records unveil something profoundly unsettling. Dora wasn't disgusted by the individual's overtures. She was stimulated by them. Her distress wasn't injury. It was dissatisfaction. She resented the man, not for his interest in her, but for ceasing his chase once she rebuffed him. Freud termed this the sexualization of denial, a process where rebuff intensifies allure, where the denial of fulfillment turns into the root of fixation. Now, reflect on today's romantic landscape. How often have males been instructed that insistence equals violation? That rejection must invariably signify rejection. Yet Freud's research and historical precedents demonstrate the contrary. From Cleopatra maneuvering Julius Caesar via strategic defiance to the chivalric poets of the Middle Ages composing odes to inaccessible high-born ladies, the motif is irrefutable. Passion flourishes amid strain on the brink of refusal. The current doctrine of eager agreement overlooks this harsh fact. Excitement defies reason, that the woman's mind is designed for triumph, not ease. But this is where it becomes incendiary. Freud's most debated assertion, the one that led to his volumes being torched, was that females covet male authority. Not in spite of their womanhood, but due to it. He labeled it penis envy, though its true essence was horribly misconstrued. It wasn't anatomical. It concerned autonomy. Females, Freud contended, are conditioned to accept gratification, not seize it. Their cravings are channeled through male vigor, through the excitement of being hunted, overpowered, even subdued. This clarifies why the strongest females still dream of yielding, why tales of wealthy tycoons top women's literary preferences, why the surge in women's autonomy has aligned with a boom in bondage and discipline trends. Doubtful yet? Let's leap to 1953. Alfred Kinsey, the pioneer of current sexual studies, performed tests assessing bodily excitement in females. His results: women displayed greater stimulation from narratives of coerced allure than from mutual encounters. Their physiques contradicted their declared ethics. Kinsey concealed the information. Why? It clashed with the budding women's rights storyline. Because the reality was troublesome. So, what does this imply for you? It suggests the tactics you've been advised to shun, the back and forth, the banter, the parries aren't merely successful. They're innate necessities. Indicates the courteous fellow ends up behind, not for his goodness, but for his reliability. It means the females who profess to seek parity in professional settings still yearn for disparity in intimate ones. And most vitally, it means the secret to passion isn't providing women what they vocalize desiring. It's offering what they won't confess needing. But this marks only the start. As we're now exploring the tangible outcomes of disregarding Freud's alerts, the shattered males who followed the guidelines and forfeited all. and the emergence of a passionless culture. A quiet crisis is permeating the contemporary globe, a scourge of isolation and discontent so immense it's transforming whole cohorts. Males are retreating not only from romance but from community altogether. They're surrendering. In the scariest aspect, they have valid cause, since the principles they learned of compassion, fairness, steadfast admiration have disastrously rebounded. But this isn't an abrupt societal change. It's the unavoidable outcome of neglecting what Freud cautioned about more than 100 years past. Let's commence with a narrative absent from conventional discussions. In 1908, Freud cared for a youthful gentleman named Edward, an aspiring attorney afflicted with what was termed neurasthenia, then a debilitating exhaustion, melancholy, and utter absence of erotic interest. Edward embodied the virtuous male, well-schooled, courteous, economically secure. He fulfilled all societal demands, yet his spouse scorned him. She ridiculed his frailty, dallied blatantly with others, and ultimately abandoned him for a rough laborer with a felony history. Freud's verdict: ethical emasculation. Edward had been trained to quell his assertiveness, his supremacy, his unrefined manhood, and thereby rendered himself unnoticeable to females. Advance to the present. The typical male below 30 is triple the likelihood of being abstinent compared to his dad's era. Romance platforms have morphed courtship into a shredder where the elite 10% of males garner 90% of women's focus. And the males who triumph, they're not adhering to the norms. They're the ones grasping the shadowy reality Freud revealed, that women's passion disregards equity, prioritizes fervor. Ponder the notorious Tinder research by the University of Oslo in 2018. Scholars discovered that females deemed 85% of males as subpar in appeal, not simply unattractive, undeserving of further notice. The identical research showed females preferred dividing a superior male over committing to a kind one providing fidelity. Why? Monotony slays passion. Freud dubbed this the tedium axiom. The notion that females, akin to all people, are attracted to fluctuation, to irregularity, to hazard. The present romantic arena, with its infinite choices and immediate rewards, has weaponized this natural urge. But it worsens. In the 1950s, psychologist John Money executed experiments on sex and stimulation. His most startling revelation: females verbally claimed attraction to benevolent, dependable males, but their biological reactions narrated otherwise. When connected to deception sensors and presented visuals of commanding, even hazardous males, their eyes widened, pulses raced, and dermal reactions exposed their authentic sentiments. Money, similar to Kinsey, suppressed the findings, because conceding that females longed for what they professed to abhor would have demolished the budding legend of balanced partnerships. Now survey the surroundings. The evidence abounds. The ascent of shadowy love stories, where women readers fixate on crime lords, abductors, and ethically ambiguous villains. The surge of only fans, where females don't fawn over deferential males. They invest to be belittled by distant, authoritative personas. Even in governance, females routinely support dictatorial figures over mild innovators. Freud termed this the Thanatos pool, the subliminal draw toward ruin, toward prohibited vitality. And males who decline to recognize it, they're left perplexed. Solitary, browsing infinite romance accounts, yielding naught but quietude. But here's the reversal. This isn't females' culpability. Freud's most disputed and misconceived revelation was that females govern their cravings no more than males. They're captives to identical organic mandates, the same archaic circuitry. The distinction? Culture permits them to revel in duplicity. A male who concedes wanting a compliant female is vilified. A female who covertly hungers for a controlling, promiscuous male, she's exalted provided she fabricates an open view. Consider the notorious Stanford prison trial of 1971. Although the inquiry centered on authority structures, the unreported detail was the conduct of the women investigators. Despite denouncing the warden's brutality, they were predominantly drawn to them. A parallel event transpired in Nazi-era Germany, where females pursued SS personnel even while asserting hatred for totalitarianism. Freud's rationale: The sensual psyche lacks ethics. So, what's the remedy? Do males turn into beasts to gain affection? No, the resolution is strategy, not deceit, but comprehension.
Also.
The males who flourish in this fresh era aren't those resenting women's essence. They're those who command it. They realize that allure isn't constructed on subservience, erected on suspense, on enigma, on the unforeseen. But this merely scratches the exterior. Now we plunge further into the mental combat of contemporary romance and into the deceptions women impose on themselves, whether she concedes it or otherwise. A conflict is being fought against males not via projectiles or explosives, but through language, statutes, and evolving communal pacts aimed at divesting them of their innate drives. The arena, courtship, the victims. Countless males who no longer comprehend the directives or graver have been supplied falsehoods regarding women's genuine wants. But this isn't merely a societal evolution. It's a purposeful erosion of the erotic order, one that Freud foresaw would culminate in widespread male disenchantment. The most frightening element, it's succeeding. Let's initiate with a narrative omitted from educational materials. In 1927, a youthful mental expert named Wilhelm Reich, formerly Freud's apprentice, carried out a sequence of secret dialogues with laboring females in Berlin. His aim? To reveal what they genuinely sought in a partner. The outcomes were so volatile that Reich's work was subsequently incinerated by the Nazis. Why? It disclosed a disquieting fact. Females didn't desire parity, they desired contrast. They longed for partners more robust than themselves, more resolute than themselves, partners who could and would assume command. One female's admission was especially incriminating. "I don't wish to be his companion, I wish to be his anomaly." Advanced to now, the contemporary male has been manipulated into accepting that manhood is harmful, that supremacy is mistreatment, and that the path to a female's affection is relentless deference. Yet the statistics narrate differently. A 2020 inquiry in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology determined that females were markedly more prone to relish encounters with companions exhibiting boldness, even hostility during intimacy. Not for relishing discomfort, but since fervor demands conflict, because longing, as Freud expressed, emerges from the strain between yielding and victory. But this is where it turns malevolent. The identical culture that rebukes male supremacy compensates it in reality. Observe the elevation of the rogue archetype in cinema. Character who defies regulations, disregards limits, yet invariably secures the female. Observe the entertainment sector, where women performers croon about poisonous males they can't abandon. Observe the separation tribunals, where kind fellows are methodically, economically devastated, while the detached, commanding former spouse proceeds unharmed. This isn't inconsistency, it's inherent behavior. And Freud anticipated it 100 years back when he inscribed, "Society will require males to emasculate themselves and then ponder why females disengage." Now ponder the situation of Michael, a 32-year-old technician who approached me last year. Michael represented the perfect current male. Advocate for equality, sentimentally accessible, keen to gratify. He prepared meals for his partner, recalled her anniversaries, bolstered her profession without reservation, and then she departed for a fellow who evoked emotion in her. Michael's offense: he was secure, foreseeable, dull. His partner's precise phrase: "I care for you, but I'm not enamored with you." This occurrence isn't uncommon. It's widespread, and it's anchored in a mental concept Freud named the hedonic conveyor. The concept that people adjust to delight but fixate on obstacles. Provide a female all she requests, and she will forfeit curiosity. Because longing isn't concerning fulfillment, it's concerning chase. Still dubious? Let's discuss apprehension. Anthropologist David Buss executed a worldwide inquiry on partner preservation tactics. His most debated discovery: females were most drawn to males desired by other females, and least to those overly accessible. This wasn't societal, it was global. From indigenous groups to financial hubs, the design persisted. The instant a male elevates a female above his own mission, she starts to undervalue him. Freud labeled this the rarity axiom, the twisted actuality that focuses solely precious when merited, not bestowed. So what's the remedy? Turn distant sentimentally? Engage in psychological ploys? The resolution is perspective mastery. The males who prosper in this novel period aren't those pursuing females, they're those who attract. They comprehend that allure is a mental contest, not a rational one. They realize that females assert wanting an attentive auditor, but react to a male who guides. They acknowledge that assurance isn't conceit, it's detachment. This is where we're escalating dramatically, to the singular Freudian mystery that reprograms women's allure at an instinctual tier. Into the fabrications culture imparts to males to maintain their compliance, and into Freud's supreme maneuver that compels females to pursue. Music, there exists a power concealed profoundly in the woman's mind, an urge so formidable, so mercilessly primitive, that once comprehended, you'll never again question why she selected him instead of you. It concerns not appearance, not wealth, not position. This involves something vastly more hazardous, the subliminal catalyst of capitulation. Freud unearthed it in his most provocative publication, Current Mental Science, Interred. And the males aware of it, they deploy it as an armament. Allow me to narrate about a figure unfamiliar to you. In 1936, a Hungarian mental analyst named Sándor Ferenczi, Freud's most extreme disciple, performed a trial so volatile his peers insisted on its obliteration. He exposed females to dual audio samples of male tones. The initial was mild, obliging, conciliatory. The latter was resonant, deliberate, boldly authoritative. The outcome? 87% of females exhibited corporeal indicators of excitement solely to the latter tone. But here's the eerie part. When queried why, they couldn't articulate. They justified. They falsified. One female even maintained detesting the authoritative tone, while her biological reaction proclaimed the opposite. In summary, the woman's subliminal does not desire inquiry. It desires capture. This isn't hypothesis. It's physiology. Contemporary. Brain research has subsequently confirmed that women's minds secrete dopamine, the longing chemical, not upon receiving what they articulate wanting, but upon facing opposition. A 2019 UCLA brain scan inquiry disclosed that female participants viewing pictures of benevolent grinning males showed no stimulation in their gratification zones, but pictures of males with critical looks, their nucleus accumbens, the mind's delight mechanism illuminated like a jackpot. Freud named this the rebellion contradiction. The fiercer a woman professes to spurn supremacy, the more her circuitry compensates, yielding to it. Now, consider your existence. How frequently have you observed a female relegate a kind male to friendship only to return to a former who mistreated her? How often have you witnessed an accomplished, astute female grow infatuated with a male providing nothing except irregularity? This isn't poor confidence, it's impulse. And it originates from humankind's harshest endurance fact. Females are biologically engineered to assess male fortitude because frailty signified demise for their forebears. Each occasion she repels you to observe if you remain steadfast. Each time she initiates a dispute to measure your sentimental restraint, she isn't malicious. She's screening, and most males falter without comprehending the evaluation. But this is where it becomes authentic. In 1951, psychologist Erik Erikson executed a now-concealed inquiry on spousal interactions. He determined that in all enduring opposite-sex unions, an implicit authority structure existed. And the instant the male forfeited his position as the mental stabilizer, the female forfeited admiration for him. Not for being wicked, but because her physiology viewed his yielding as hereditary disloyalty. One spouse's nameless revelation encapsulated it. I implored him to show more fragility. Then when he did, I couldn't regard him identically. This is the monumental deception of contemporary romance. Females assert wanting parity, but their stimulation necessitates imbalance. They profess craving sentimental openness, but their allure demands sentimental rarity. Freud's gloomiest revelation, the womanly essence abhors what it solicits. So what's the response? Transform into a callous schemer? No, the response is contrast. The males who command women's longing don't despise females. They fathom them. They realize that authentic manhood isn't about domination, but about encouraging capitulation. They don't insist on admiration. They evoke it, not via coercion, but via immovable demeanor. Here's how to implement this. 1. The quietude tactic. When she evaluates you, and she will, the erroneous action is to debate, defend, or pursue. The correct action: utter nothing. Freud observed that women's minds populate quietude with sentimental commitment. The more you clarify, the less she senses. The less you clarify, the more she seeks the clarification. 2. The resolute mandate. Females don't desire suggestions. They desire guidance. A 2022 inquiry in social, psychological, and personality. Science verified that females felt notably greater allure toward males who arranged agendas without soliciting their view. It's not for being passive, but because resolution-making is intellectual supremacy, and supremacy is sensual. 3. The incentive sanction cycle. This isn't about scheming, it's about training. When she acts in manners aligning with your criteria, grant her focus. When she doesn't, retract it. Not as reprisal, but as inherent outcome. Freud's patient analyses disclosed that females solely prize focus from males who restrict it tactically. But this is merely the base. Because the ultimate mystery, the one unifying Freud's entire oeuvre, is that women's longing isn't concerning the female whatsoever, it's concerning you. The instant you deem her the reward, you forfeit. The instant you exist unrepentantly by your own principles, she commences the pursuit. This is the supreme reversal, the magnificent disclosure, the wisdom in its most unadulterated state. Type liberate in the comments if you're prepared to harness this wisdom, because you were never impotent. You were simply misguided. Now proceed and behave thus.